Even in a society which pays pop stars more than cabinet ministers and footballers more than nurses, a stranger might suppose that a white-collar worker would at least not be poor. Yet Francis Beveridge is poor. Even if, to most people, the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, there can be few whose patch seems quite so parched and arid as does Frank Beveridge's to him. He's a clerk in a ministry office. Under the Official Secrets Act, he can't discuss the figures. He adds and subtracts, multiplies and divides, even if anyone wished to listen. Like a million others, he goes to work at 9 and finishes at 5. To his employers, no more than a cipher. To London Transport, merely a statistic. Opposite Arsenal football ground, where the idols of today can earn fame and fortune kicking a ball about of a Saturday afternoon, Francis Beveridge lives with his wife and daughter in a 2-roomed flat in a terraced house. It's only at home, perhaps, that he can shed his anonymity and fulfill himself. Francis Beveridge supports his family on less than £25 a week after deductions, pays nearly £2 a week in rent. But apart from wanting to learn to play the violin, he has had other ambitions in his life.
Yes, I must say, I wish I could have made money, in the sense that, you see, to be realistic, first of all, you have to satisfy the, you can almost call them animal needs. I mean, you must put some food in your mouth, and you must have something to wear, more or less, and somewhere to keep the rain off. Otherwise, life is pretty miserable. I mean, from a creature comfort point of view, isn't it?
I'd like to, if I may, ask you some fairly sort of practical questions about day-to-day living and
Yes.
so on and so forth. What do you spend money on?
Nowadays, not very much. I used to go up Portobello Road most Saturdays and try and find these China gramophones, which you may wish to look at later on. You know, they give me great pleasure, or did. But I think the wife's not basically interested in music, you know, not even in the sense in which I am, you know. She doesn't dislike it, I think, but you see, I think my favourite sort of record used to be, at one time anyway, sopranos. I mean, Galli-Curci, Melba, you know, Tetrazzini, this class of singer, you know. But they don't appeal to her. And I really can't get any pleasure out of playing these things when somebody else is sort of sitting there tolerating it, you know. And to my astonishment, a year ago last Christmas, she bought me a violin. This was, yes, Christmas '68, that's right, 21 months ago. And I'd never played the violin in my life. I think there was a time at one village school where I might have been about to start to learn, but I moved immediately, and this was about the age of 6 or something like this. Well, I've always thought in my mind that the violin is a thing you must start at the age of 6, you know, not 46. So, having started 40 years late, I presume that having done the usual stint, which is probably about 10 years, you know, add another 40 onto that to make up the 40 I missed, and 50 years' time I might be able to play something for you, you know.
Do you drink?
No, I don't. No, it doesn't interest me in the slightest. I've nothing against it at all. The wife can't stand it. She can't stand it. She'd run a mile rather than, you know. But I have nothing against it, whatever.
Do you smoke?
No, I don't smoke. No, I used to, and I used to thoroughly enjoy it. Or not to split it and finish, but I used to thoroughly to enjoy it, you know.
Do you ever go to the pictures?
No, I don't now, because the wife's view of pictures and everything is different from mine, you know, and she might think this was offensive, you know, which to me wouldn't be. You understand what I mean? We live in different worlds, I'm afraid. Different worlds. It can't be helped. It's just the way it is. So I don't bother. And if I were to go by myself, I suppose she would probably think I was with somebody else, you understand what I mean? So I don't. I just don't bother. I've given up. I've completely given up, you know. I'm just, really, it sounds ridiculous to you, of course, and you won't believe it, and none of the people who see this will believe it, but I'm just waiting to be measured up to the old box, you know. Yeah. You know, the 6 foot by 2, you know, that one. Yeah.
That sounds very sad.
But that's the truth of it. That's, of course, if one is lucky enough in this world to be in one piece at the end of it, you know. I mean, this is by no means a foregone conclusion, because if we're not very careful, you know, we're all going to be spattered all over the universe. You know, I mean, I'm sure everybody realises by now, you know, we live in a world of lunatics. We really do, you know, megalomaniacs. To put it no higher or no lower, you know, it's about to blow up, you know.
How old were you when you got married?
Let me see, 1966, January. So that means I'd had my birthday in 65 and I was 43 and 4 months.
Why did you get married?
I suppose I had a sense of loneliness, you know. I suppose I thought, well, it'll be company, you know, and I rather fancy she felt much the same. And we seem reasonably good friends, you know, and I've sort of developed the idea, you know, once you get over the youthful idea that there's one person for everybody, you understand what I mean, you realise that this is not the case afterwards, you know, one comes to this. It takes a long time, and none of the young people watching me will believe this, especially if they're madly in love with their whatever girlfriend or boyfriend they're in love with, you know. They won't believe this. But in fact, after a time you get round to the way of thinking, you see that, in fact, the average man or woman could be happy with any one of 10,000 partners. You know, I say 10,000, you could make it more or less according to your taste, you know, but within the framework of marriage and so on and so forth, you could be happy with a lot of people.
Have you ever been in love, deeply in love?
Yes, I suppose that's true to say. There was one girl I knew about, 20 years ago. Unfortunately, she was married, you know, so I couldn't pursue that, you know what I mean? And that was a bit of a setback, you know. In fact, it would have been difficult had things not been that way, because I didn't have a penny, you know. You could imagine this was the time when I was messing about doing all these various jobs, you know, so it wouldn't have been easy in any case, you know. And with my particular view of life, which I've always held, you know, I would expect it to go wrong. I would think to myself, well, one is transgressing some sort of eternal law here, you know what I mean? Probably one is, but you can't be sure of it, can you? At least I can't be sure of anything. So I suppose I would have expected trouble to ensue from that, so one avoids it, you know.
Would you describe yourself as being a happy man?
Anything but. Anything but. I would never apply that to myself, no. No, anything but.
Would you describe yourself as being an unhappy man?
Oh, yes. One of the sad things about one's life is the fact that it took me 35 years to realise that I knew nothing. 35 years, you know. And it was just about the time I started with the ministry, I think it was. I just about got to the realisation that what I know could be written on the one perforation of a postage stamp, you know, in large capitals, you know. Yeah.
Did this sudden awareness depress you?
I don't know that it was sudden. I'd had very powerful intimations before, you know, but one keeps on hoping that one is going to come up with something in the end, you know. Somewhere I read that most men live lives of quiet desperation, and I thought, I didn't know what that meant once, but nobody has to tell me now. I know exactly what it means. Quiet desperation, it's a marvellous phrase, isn't it? Hmm. Words have, I find words have this effect. I'm sorry, I didn't answer exactly what you asked me then. You said, did it come upon me suddenly? No, it dawned upon me, you know, with increasing suddenness, shall we say, put it like that, yes. And at least I'm convinced now, you know, that I know nothing at all.
In what way, particularly, is yours a life of quiet desperation?
Well, I suppose partly the sense of absolute failure, you know, this I do have.
Poverty is not just to do with lack of money, it's to do with lack of reward in life. After all, even if money does allow you, as they say, to choose your own form of misery, there are poor people who can't choose and are happy nonetheless. But Francis Beveridge, deprived as he is of the fruits of our affluent society, finds no other reward. Says he doesn't even get on too well with his Finnish wife, Eva.
We haven't got much in common. For example, Christianity, that's very important to me, and I think that's a big difference between us and brings a lot of difficulties also. I would like to go to church together, and this doesn't interest Francis so much. So I feel a bit lonely, you know, not like that. I imagine if I get married and the husband goes along with his wife.
What sort of things do you do together?
Not much really. We go out during weekends, you know, just with the baby in the park. Before we had the baby, we used to go to Portobello Road and these marketplaces. And shopping, we do sometimes shopping together. And we haven't got much in common really. if I take photographs, then of course we watch them together, slides. It's about all, I think.
Don't you feel that in fact it's very selfish to inflict your sort of pessimism and hopelessness on your wife?
No, because it's the truth, and all I could do would be to feel as I do and not say so, which would be quite dishonest. If you say it would be a good idea, it might help, I think underneath, especially women, they would know that you felt this. I mean, the fact that one makes it explicit and, doesn't mind saying so, I don't think this makes much difference. I couldn't change it. If it were different, then I would say it was different, and when I can, I should be glad to do so. Yes.
What do you think will happen in the future?
In which sense do you mean? Do you mean that will Francis change, or?
The future for you and for Francis and for your baby?
I keep hoping that we will get on better, and we have something to see the Miriam growing up, and I keep hoping that we will be happier. Of course, the other thing, if we decide to go our own ways, I would go back to Finland, and
Thank you.
I think Francis would live where he's living now. Go back to that sort of life he used to live before we met each other.